I hope you'll excuse this one. This one is a bit raw. I had basically a medicine-induced panic attack right as I was trying to get this thing rolling, and it's just a train wreck. So it's going to be a little raw, it's going to be a little straightforward, kind of chatty, and I will try to return next week with some production value and something fun and all that good stuff. So thanks, and here's the video. Hello, I'm Jamie Maldonado. Welcome to Camera Insecura. This is episode 18. Hard to believe. I'm obviously still learning a lot about how to make these videos good. I could do like one a month and make it pretty nice looking, but then no one would watch. It would take me years to build up content, and I feel like it's kind of slow motion. I'm doing 2 a week. It feels like a lot. If I've done something that you like, if I've done something that you wish I had done more of, or I came so close to something cool, let me know. Your feedback drives the show. It makes it so fun. I enjoy doing this anyway. I like talking shop, but what really makes this fun is when you comment, when you like, when I see your views. So hopefully, I'd love to hear from you. I feel like right now this pace is the best for me to learn how to make better content. So today we're talking about mirrorless. Nikon has announced their mirrorless series, the Z6 and Z7, and it's all over the place. I don't need to read you the stats, or I'm not going to complain about one memory card or whatever. My point is that I like the mirrorless thing, and I think some of you might need to know why that even matters, because that's my kind of audience generally, that I deal with a lot of people who are beginning, and that's why I like feeding philosophy and stuff to people who are beginning, because I feel like the more you hear that, the more you're exposed to the why of things, the better you're going to get. There are a lot of people talking about the Nikon mirrorless, and a lot of people fall on a lot of sides of this. A lot of people were like overly into the mirrorless thing, and a lot of people are overly against it, and they act like it's amateur stuff, and that the small cameras make you look less professional and junk like that. Professional is a broad term. It means that you get money for photography. You don't have to have a certain kind of camera to make money from photography. I know a person who produced high-level national publication art with what's considered a beginner digital camera, and he was a master. It didn't matter. So yeah, if you're a sports photographer and you're going out there with a mirrorless that can't grab focus, you will be challenged. And if you can get great shots, that's awesome. But that same mirrorless thing in the hands of a landscape photographer, a street photographer, or somebody who doesn't need autofocus will do just fine. So it's a decision that is all about you and your style and what works with you. I have used everything. My first digital camera was the Nikon D1, a beefy pro body, still the best modern style digital camera body I've ever used in my life. I had in 2003, when I was 23 years old. I bought it for my own birthday because I had a pretty cushy job working as a newspaper designer and copy editor. And then I've gone from I went from that to the Canon 20D, and there are various levels. I had the Nikon D700, I had the Hasselblad digital back on the Hasselblad camera, which I have shot professional photographs with a variety of gear. And yes, lens quality can create problems. Like, let's say you're doing a group photo, and this happened to me, that there's a lot of fringing and soft edges because I was transitioning to this current job and the equipment just wasn't up to spec anymore. It may have been at one time, but not for what I was doing. I had to work through some upgrades, but you know what? I noticed the soft edges, but you know how many other people notice the soft edges? I got paid for that all the same as if I had used the new 24 through 105 f4L2 that I currently have for that same job. And that camera definitely makes it a lot easier than the 60 I was using at the time, but both of them will do professional work if you're a professional photographer. So don't let that stop you. My current workhorse for personal work is this Fuji GFX 50S, because look how little this is, and this is with the Kaipen adapter. Look how tiny this is. This is medium format. This is mind-blowing. This viewfinder, by the way, phenomenal. I love seeing a computer viewfinder versus the optical viewfinder. So let me set the scene. It's 1927. You're Ansel Adams. You are a photographer and concert pianist. You're shifting your career toward photography, but you don't, in musical terms, have a hit yet. So you set out on a journey through Yosemite, and your goal is to take a picture of Half Dome that just knocks people's socks off. And I mean, this might be paraphrased, but this is the basic idea. You have somewhere like, I think it's like 10 or 12 plates. This is literally a plate. They were literally emulsion on glass. Negatives used to be glass. You've got a large format view camera. It's not quite an 8x10, I forget the exact size. But you've got a large format view camera, which back in the days pretty much means you were carrying a whole lot of gear. They didn't use safety equipment to climb mountains back then and go on hikes and stuff like that. So anyway, you go through the day, you've got your 12 negatives, and you're shooting them, and you get to Half Dome, which is this granite rock face. And you get there, and you realize that you've only left 2 negatives. So you have 2 shots for the main reason you went out to take pictures that day. So Ansel takes his first one, and he starts working with it, and has a yellow filter. A yellow filter in this case would give you a little tone in the sky. Basically, the sky would be like kind of whitish, and this would make it kind of grayish, because this is all black and white, of course. He's like, this isn't how it feels. So this is a famous story. I'm far from the first person to tell it, but he puts, long story short, he puts a red filter over the lens, which darkens the sky to an extreme level, and he gets it, becomes mega famous. He becomes Ansel Adams of legend. This kind of contradicts what I'm going to get at about mirrorless cameras, but number one, I want to point out that that was a mirrorless camera. Number two, I want to point out that he, in his life, Ansel went from those like pack mule cameras to little handheld 35mm, and wound up, I guess, primarily shooting a Hasselblad later in life. Handheld, you know, you could park it on a tripod, because I usually do Hasselblad. And he also shot a bunch of Polaroid, actually. That's another episode, I guess. But anyway, my thing is that, yes, the equipment doesn't matter, but also he was shooting a mirrorless camera. So yeah, there were no mirrors in view cameras, and the average view camera, it's direct projection from the lens to when you're composing a piece of glass, ground glass, frosted glass basically, and it's upside down and backwards. You compose it and focus it, you put in the film, and it's projecting on the film by that point, and it exposes the negatives, and so on. So my point is that through Ansel's life, camera technology progressed greatly, and he died in 1984, I think, and he had made this series of books before he passed away, updates on his Ansel Adams photography series, I think. Anyway, there are multiple references in this to small format cameras, especially in book 1, The Camera, and he's got things like, talks about how fast you can shoot, how you can shoot through 24 and 36 frames just in seconds, and how handheld and mobile it is, and talking kind of like people talk about these things. So yeah, this whole smaller, faster, more thing is just the history of photography. So when I shoot this thing, this is a continuation. And my whole point about why I'm okay with letting go of this camera that I'm filming with is a 5D Mark IV, traditional SLR SLR camera with the viewfinder that's direct light from the lens, which is cool because you are seeing literally what you get, at least as far as the primary part of the frame goes, unlike a rangefinder or twin lens reflex. And you have the convenience of the image being corrected, unlike older cameras that are upside down and backwards or backwards and so on. There's a prism that corrects everything, so you see it as it happens, which is nice, and it was an incredible advancement in photography. But now we have this, which I think is great because it removes that slapping mirror, which adds vibration and weight and bulk, and now I could travel easily with this. This is a billboard machine in my hand, and it's great. That's not going to make me a better photographer, but Ted Forbes actually pointed out recently on his Art of Photography series that we have better cameras than Ansel Adams, and though his work was great and his cameras, I mean, they're still nice and everything, but we have the thing. This is built on Ansel's work and all those other photographers and photographers now who push equipment to the edge. So we have now arrived at this compact package with incredible, almost unthinkable power, at least like go back a couple of decades and think of this power that we have. So what I like is that this removes an obstacle. I don't like photographing with obstacles. The fewer obstacles I can get, the more I like to photograph. That's kind of one reason why I think people who can do artificial lighting don't do it, or prefer natural lighting, or people prefer natural lighting because they're afraid of artificial lighting, but also because it can be inconvenient. That's why I try to shoot primarily with one flash and ambient light. It's my best mixture of the qualities I seek and convenience and removing obstacles. And I like it because I like these things because I can get such image fidelity, which is an important thing to me, and I think an aspect of my work which, even though I use old lenses and stuff, adds a sharpness and depth to my work. And I seek that. Maybe it's not important, but if it's important to my heart and mind, my approach, and it's the... So, you know, this video is going to look kind of hideous, I guess. But I don't like things that get in the way. And I kind of chase perfection a bit in equipment, but I'm looking for a conduit. I'm looking for a conduit that will help me get what I want. And so I like mirrorless because, to me, it's a thing that helps you get to what you want. If you look at the Sony series and the now Nikon Z series, they're tiny, but they pack so much punch. This Fuji packs so much punch. And if we can get to where we don't need the flapping mirror, we can get faster frame rates, less vibration, sharper images, and yeah, the lenses can still be huge, but it's still lighter, and it's still nice to work with. And I like being able to zoom in my viewfinder. And another thing I like is I shoot into the sun a lot. I don't know if you've noticed, but a few years ago I went to the optometrist and I had a freckle on my eye, and I don't think it had anything to do with my laser beaming my eye, setting up backlit shots, but it kind of freaked me out and made me think about the sun. I was beaming directly into my eye, especially when I'm like nearly blind when I look away from the viewfinder. And mirrorless is nice because I'm looking at basically a tiny television screen, a tiny monitor, and it helps me. I'd rather the sensor take that hit alone and not my poor eye. And it really made me feel like mortal. And I'm almost 40, and I want to be able to see when I'm older. And yeah, so maybe that's weird, maybe that's baseless, but it's something that I think about. So I'm not wooed by this Nikon Z series thing, but I like it. It's a move in the right direction. Canon killed their FD mount for the EF and EOS series in the I guess the mid to late 80s, and people got pretty mad, but they were at the end of that. It had this confusing breech lock thing on the FD system, and they just scrapped it all and became the dominant camera manufacturer for maybe up until now, and it's still not off the top. It's just threatened. So they took a calculated risk, but Nikon has had their mount forever. So it has limitations. That the smaller size and everything, it's starting to hold them back. And so maybe it's their turn to eliminate their mount. It sucks, but I mean, I shoot with FD lenses still, so it's not like you can't use that old equipment anymore. It's just sometimes things change, and I wouldn't be shocked to see the Canon EF lenses go away. It's been a couple of decades. It's nice, but those days of being able to rock your camera for 50 years are gone, if they ever existed in the first place. But you can still rock the same camera for 50 years. I've got a Hasselblad from the 70s. I use it just fine. I mean, it's not a digital camera, at least since I sold my CFV50C back, but hey, it still works just fine. It still makes great images. And that is one of my problems with digital photography, is its highly disposable nature versus the film photography product. But, you know, ups and downs, pluses and minuses, it's all part of the game. I also like how adaptable mirrorless is, and Nikon's new mount has such a tiny flange distance, which in short is basically the distance between the lens and the sensor. The closer you can get to that, and you saw this in the Mamiya 7 series, is that flange distance was tiny, and on that large format film they used, and it was incredible, not large format, but large medium format 6x7 film, they got some incredible images, and I briefly owned the Mamiya 7, long story, but it was beautiful, and I longed for a digital version of that, which, not quite, but really close, really close. We're getting there. And things like mirrorless are getting us there. And we're currently stuck on only small format for digital for the most part. There's large sense, but we're at a point where the consumer and average pro can't afford medium format except for something like this, and I'm still lucky to have gotten this. But I think medium format moving into the average working photographer's repertoire again is important, and it used to be something that was very available. Digital happened and everyone is stuck in the tiny formats. So we've forgotten that we used to have a lot of options, and we used to have a lot of different cameras, and rangefinders were a thing, and DSLRs and twin lenses and view cameras and so on. So we've been locked into the DSLR, the SLR for so much of the last 15 plus years. It was really, I feel like 9/11 that the digital camera started truly coming into its own, and since then it's just gotten more and more dominant. And so new photographers in this era don't know anything different. And it's just another evolution of photography, and I welcome it, because when I first started with that Nikon D1, I shot 1600 ISO at concerts. It was grainy as all get out, but it was just incredible because it was fairly decent versus 3200 and 1600 speed film. And now look at what we can do. It's so mind-blowing, and we're just removing obstacles to our creativity, and that's what matters about it to me, and I think that's what should matter about it to you. We want to remove obstacles to our creativity, and that's why equipment is nice, but it, as we all know, and as we are told many times sometimes, it's not everything. So don't think you're not going to be a professional. Don't think you're not, you know, also not capable because you have the slappy mirror. You're going to get the same photos. When you can, if you like it, go for it. If you don't like it, don't go for it. It's personal taste, and rent a mirrorless camera, play with some adapted lenses. If it doesn't float your boat, cool, it's not you. But it changes, and I think it changes for the better. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you haven't yet. I appreciate it, and leave a comment. Let me know what you like, what you didn't like. Ask me questions, say hi, whatever. Let's talk, and I will see you on Monday morning.